Turn that on. Time's almost up. Look at that. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome everyone. Give me 14 seconds to send out this email. I should say actually text. Or is it MySpace? Give me 14 seconds. Hold on. Maybe I should do. Maybe I can actually rewind that for 7 seconds. Hold on. Can I do that? Does that work? Let me just test that. Hold on. It does work. I'm giving myself an extra 10 seconds. Hold on. Let's see. Look at that. Marvelous. Really ready. Right, okay, fantastic. Hello, welcome everyone. Right, well, let me just quickly switch to screens. So look at that. Yes, there you go. Betterment Broadcast. This is show 62, and I'm your host, Rap Raven. Hope you have a good time today, as I'm going to try to make sure we all do in learning and bettering Black people collectively. All right, so let's go through the traditional start. Those who are new, this is what we do. Also, I'll mention it halfway through again, but always important to catch this show live on the stream. One, obviously, because you can jump in with your own opinions and dictate where we go, which is always nice. But also, because we show footage and certain things might be said and all the rest of it, we might be banned for a couple of days or things get blocked. But I'll go through that when I get to it because it happens quite regularly and we need to know. Let's go on. Okay, cool. So, after much research, I've unfortunately concluded that currently Black people are collectively inadequate. This is most unfortunate. That's what it is. Collectively, a group of people are seen as a whole, and obviously, inadequate, lacking the quality to deal with life and sufficient for purpose. Okay, there you go. So that's what we're dealing with. So we're going to see if we can do something like that. So obviously, we're going to send out links today, and we're going to have a great talk and a good old shindig and all that good stuff. But when we do, let's try to uphold the 4D values. Many people jump in half the time, they don't get to see this, and they say words that might contribute to anxiety, which we want to minimize if possible when dealing with Black people. So the 4D values, what are they? They're discipline, dedication, dignity, and discernment. Use these 4 disciplines, these pillars here, and this will help you communicate with Black people when trying to find solutions. That's the idea. If you can use these 4, take a screen grab, put it on your phone or your PC, just break them down and try to use it. It should hopefully help towards finding solutions when dealing with Black people collectively. Let's go. Moving on. Right. So also, we definitely want to minimize and lower using derogatory language, colorless language, this kind of stuff. Naturally, we might be showing videos, and some of the videos you might see some of this, and this is all for training purposes. And maybe some of the guest speakers might, by accident say certain things. We try not to, really arrest people for this kind of stuff, but we definitely want to move towards a direction where we want to definitely minimize derogatory language, if possible, when trying to help Black people. All right, cool. Here's some. If for those, you can pause the screen. There's some on the screen at the moment. You can pause the screen grab, all that good stuff, and just see what, these are replacement language we can use instead of. Some people have been trained to use certain languages and they don't know any others. Here at the Betterment Broadcast, we've put some suggested ideas that you can use that might be very, beneficial. Blah, blah, blah. Fantastic. All right. So for those who don't know, what is Black Betterment? I hear no one say. Well, it's Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. Very important. Very important. That means that Black betterment is a lifestyle. So this entire broadcast is promoting the lifestyle of Black people helping Black people on Black issues. Sounds very simple, but unfortunately, throughout many years, for some reason, through programming, many Black people find it challenging to actually work on Black issues. This is most challenging, but using this lifestyle principle, we're going to see we can reverse that, because one reason why Black people are collectively inadequate is for many years we haven't actually been able or want to work on Black issues. Shame on us. Let's see if we can fix that. All right, cool. This little disclaimer now. So copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use of purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, personal use, tips to balance in favor of fair use. So basically saying I'm going to be playing some videos that might be owned by other people for educational news purposes. It doesn't really work because, we post some news stuff and then they start flagging up the page, automatic algorithms that, get shut down. You get all this kind of flags and this kind of stuff. Never nice, but we have to read it because I think that's what you do. You let people know it's not your material that you'll be playing. Yeah, but, they'll still flag it. So we're going to lose. That's why, and I come back to what I said at the beginning, Very important to catch this show live if you can, because it might get banned for a couple of days and I have to put it back up and then, edit out certain copyright material and then you miss it and then, the whole mood's gone and, oh, woe is us, woe is us. So if you can, tell a friend to be a friend of the show, watch it live, because that's the best to catch it live, because if you don't catch it live, you're going to catch it with bits and bobs. It's never that good. No, sir. No, sir. All right, cool. Now, what is this? We can come back to this bit later. Very important diagram. We'll come back with it. And we'll come back to this. All right. So, okay, today's show. This is a continuation of last week's show. Last week's show was very, very problematic. Problematic. Well, there was one or two things, but generally it was very good, to be fair. To be equal, I should say. So this is, which is more helpful for Black women, African womanism or European feminism? Now, we started last week. We showed some examples of, because many sisters and brothers were not aware of this term of womanism, because we're dealing with certain challenges where naturally, if you're a woman, it should be within you. Well, you would think that you want equal rights for women, and you also would like to think that men feel the same way. But men being not women, they might not be thinking the same process. And obviously, you like to believe that women would like to have equal rights and things. And then, it's how do you word that? Now, historically, this word feminism came out, which is they describe as equality amongst the sexes, but obviously from the standpoint of woman-centered. But this is how we have come to know feminism. But as you know, feminism, has collectively come together as political strategies. And some of the political strategies, or many, to be fair, if I'm being honest, to be equal, I should say, hasn't necessarily been best suited for Black people, especially Black women. And many Black women has felt used by political feminist movements. And I shouldn't be talking about this. I'm sure there are many Black women who would love to jump on the show and talk about their experiences, all that good stuff. There we go. Oh, here we go. I've just been giving some good advice from Brownie. Darius. You have to play for 30 seconds, comment, then play it, then review it. That stops copyright strike. Thank you. You know what? Okay, we're going to try that. We're going to try, because what obviously there's some obviously professional shows we play, and when we say professional, like news and stuff, and there's some that looks like it was done, just by an up and coming person doing good stuff. So the assumption would be those up and coming persons doing good stuff, we promote their show, give them credit, but they don't have the algorithms to actually really shut us down. So, but obviously the more fine-tuned, polished productions, we'll try to do 30-second review stance. Hopefully that will help. Maybe I can also keep on changing the screen in and out. That might change. Who knows how to use algorithms? They're getting smart every day, but it is what it is. Blah blah blah. But back to the feminism. So yeah. So what it is many women, they identify feminism, and so they should, as a concept of equality. But obviously, the political movements might not best represent Black women. And then you came forth the womanism movement, which was a way to address these issues and challenges. So hence why the show is what is more helpful for Black women, African womanism or European feminism. Now, obviously, this show specializes in training Black people how to work Black people. So naturally, the show is going to hold an extreme bias towards African womanism, because this seems to be a Afro-centered, Black-centered concept, which correlates with all the best ideals of Black betterment, which is, let's go back, because we might forget, 1, 2, 3, it is Black people helping Black people on Black issues for betterment. So anything that correlates with that makes sense for Black betterment. So this is a tick for me. All right, cool. Anyway, so what we're going to do, let's start with, which was a nice one to start with. Just so I hope you guys are ready to jump on. You had your homework last week to research womanism, also how feminism affects you as a woman. We definitely, we'll be moving on in the future to Black Love Campaign, but before we can get to the Black Love Campaign properly, we have to make sure that both the sexes, the men and women, are feeling represented and they feel they have a say. And we have to go through these kind of elements to fix one of the challenges, because Black Love is very popular, but it isn't being popularized or put on any kind of platform. So one might assume that Black Love is not popular, which is most unfortunate. So this channel is going to help to actually show the values and the necessity of Black Love and how it contributes to Black betterment. Fantastic. Yes, very good indeed. Now, what we should do is let's listen to a definition of a womanism. There's many different sects of concepts and stuff, but they all correlate within the same kind of, paradigm. Listen to this one. Hopefully, we won't get a strike for this one. I won't be reviewing this. This one looks like it comes from a show of a non kind of newsy kind of thing. But let's see what can be wrong.
Paradigm for women of African
Oh,
descent.
paradigm. Use the same word again. Let's move back. This is Cleora, a Hudson Wims, very important woman. Let's have a listen. How long? This one's a few. Yeah, not about 3 minutes. So have a listen to this, just to get you up to date with womanism and that good stuff. There, play.
Is Africana womanism a global paradigm for women of African descent? What I'll be doing is defining the paradigm within a global perspective. And I would like to open up with a quote, a very important quote that comes from this anthology, which I edited, entitled Contemporary Africana Theory, Thought, and Action, A Guide to Africana Studies, in which of course, we were fortunate enough to have Mark Christian from Liverpool, England, to do the afterword, okay? So it goes like this, quote, an important role for the next generation of Africana scholars will be in establishing without compromise the crucial role of Africana women,
All right.
in particular, within the same
I was told I should always stop just to give a little commentary, just to stop the algorithm. So right on, carry on.
authentic Africana theoretical framework, an authentic African-centered paradigm designed for all women of African descent, that is Africana womanism, has been put forth by myself as the editor. As Africana Studies focuses on the totality of Africana life and the interrelatedness of all African people, and we are talking about men, women, and children. We are very inclusive. All right, so must we look at Africana woman and the Africana woman's place and the need for her greater, and her need for the greater family, who have been basically for centuries suffering from racial domination and exploitation. She must put, of course, at the top of her list the whole thing of race. So her priorities for ultimately realizing human survival starts with a clear understanding of race and racism. Admittedly, the destiny of the collective Africana community lies within the concerted collective worldview, wherein African-centered thought and practice must coexist on equal terms. So, I want to pause and put a pin there as I focus on the title itself, echoing.
Very good. Last week we showed a lot of videos, and we were kind of ran out of time, so we weren't going to show as much this time, but I hope people are ready to jump in, especially the Black woman community. The Black woman community, that's a good one. Black women. Yeah, this is your time to shine, all that good stuff.
The basic definition of Africana womanism, the editors of Call and Response, the Riverside Anthology of the African American Literary Tradition that came out in 1998, assert that Africana womanism, and by extension the Africana womanist, quote, is, as defined by the theorist Hudson Weems, is a Black woman activist who is family-centered rather than female-centered. There is a difference. And who focuses on race and class empowerment before gender empowerment. There is a difference. This was outlined very vividly in the book, the first African Womanism book that came out in 1993, entitled African Womanism, Reclaiming Ourselves.
That's the first book. Make sure you find that one.
She says, of all, the anthology says, of all of the theoretical models, Hudson Weems best describes the racially based perspective of many Black women's rights advocates, beginning with Maria W. Stewart and Frances W. Harper in the early 19th century.
There you go. Thank you very much. Nice intro there. Cool. That's very technical. Now we're going to do, I'm not here to do any kind of bias. What's this? You're better off getting a panel of play review and so forth. There we go. A little suggestion here. It's very organic. You might be better off getting panel on play review and so forth. I'm not sure what that means. I am slow. You are fast. just get it in that mid-level. You might be better off getting panel on play. Does that mean as in invite the people on, the guest on, and then as I play videos, have them review? That might be an idea, you know. Well, I don't know if that's what you're saying, but if it isn't, I give you credit for that. So what we're going to do, because we are organic, and that's the concept of the show, we grow, we try, we explore. And if it doesn't work, we try some more. We add that in there. I'm going to throw the link out there. So this is for anyone who wants to jump in early while I play these videos. You can have your say. This is from Brownie Diaries. No, to stop copyright. So sorry, Brownie Diaries. I actually gave you credit for coming up with a new innovative way. Where actually you're trying to tell me how not to be flagged. But either way, you know, both get credit for that. Excellento. Cool. Anyway, I throw a link out there for those who want to jump in. I know we have Sister Bay. Waste no time. Welcome to the show, Sister Bay. If you can hear me, how's it going?
Hi, Raven. Sorry, I'm dyslexic, so I'm not that good at writing, Raven.
That's fine,
what I was trying to say is what you're better off doing if you want to play long videos is you get the panel on, you let the person speak for about 30 seconds, then they have to comment for a couple of minutes, and then you play it again. That's normally what stops the copyright strike.
Right,
that's how
other people do it. I think I kind of got it. So basically, you play it for a bit, you stop it, and that chops up the algorithm to define you. Yeah, we're gonna have to try that. You're gonna have to try it, definitely. Good idea. Thank you very much. All right. So what we're gonna do now, guys, is we've actually started the concept of womanism. Now, today's show is which is more helpful for Black women, African womanism or European feminism. Now, I'm not here to really push the whole bias thing. I probably am, to be honest. Well, there are many feminists of past of European descent, and I'm sure there are many who did so many wonderful things for African descent people, but there were some who wasn't that kind. So we're going to look at one now. We're going to look at, it's funny because when the word feminism doesn't come up on a Wikipedia page, not that Wikipedia page is the be-all or end-all of scholar, but I suspect someone removed it after this. But we're going to look up a lady known as Margaret Sanger. Just a quick... which should we hopefully this will be fine.
Higher historical narratives.
So this is one of the first wave feminism movements. This was trying to get women to have birth control rights, this kind of stuff. And you know, many people pushing this good stuff for good stuff. However, they realized that for many non-European people and also people who actually weren't well, maybe some kind of historical illness, genetic default from the past. This particular feminist woman wasn't necessarily have their best interests at heart. So we're going to listen to this video and then we're going to start and stop just to see. This is one of the first wave feminists, or maybe fourth first wave, I can't remember to be fair, Margaret Sanger. And this is feminism. And this is one of the issues that many Black women had with women who claim to be feminists or who push forward feminist ideas as it pertains to Black women. Play.
From state to state, America's entire historical narrative seems to be in the process of being reworked. Historical figures that have long been held up with admiration are being castigated. Statues are being removed.
So for those who can't see, and I'm pausing just for double purposes to explain as well to stock algorithms, they're pulling down statues of historical European people of European descent who people thought behaviors they did were best pleasing. And the first one I see is Christopher Columbus. He's being taken down now. They say he discovered America. He did discover people were there, but Europeans would word it in a certain way that made that make more sense to them. And I think they're taking the statue now. I think because of the racism and the whole genocide, that kind of stuff as well, which wasn't best pleasing for today's audience. Hey. All right. General Stonewall Jackson been taken down as well. He's on a horse, I believe. Okay. And obviously there's ones of Confederate soldiers. Many of them, if not all of them, were fighting to maintain slavery, for economic reasons. Probably they push forward more than actually hating Black people, but many of us say that's synonymous. And yep, that's so people taking some of their soldiers down.
The latest to join this list is feminist icon and founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger.
So there's now a show talking about Margaret Sanger.
She was on the forefront of the fight for birth control and reproductive choice. She established the Birth Control League, which today is known as Planned Parenthood and is one of the top providers of reproductive health care in the United States.
Right.
Well, now this clinic here in Manhattan is erasing her name. Why? Well, in addition to fighting for women's reproductive rights, Margaret Sanger was an advocate of eugenics.
Birth control does not mean contraception indiscriminately practiced. It means the release and cultivation of the better elements in our society, and the gradual suppression, elimination, and eventual extinction of defective stocks, those human weeds which threaten the blooming of the finest flowers of American civilization.
It sounds very much like eugenics. Many people are of European descent from that time, around about before the 1920s, but around about that kind of time. And many Europeans wasn't best pleased with people they thought as inferior. Funny enough, when people say white supremacy, a lot of people think this is non-white people talking about white people. Well, actually, these were concepts that white people kept themselves. Historical reasons for feeling superior. You don't necessarily see this collective behavior in other people groups, not really. And there is a work to study what happened. Francis Cresswell had a very good book. The ISIS papers that tries to break down the psychology of why white people wanted to mistreat people based on color and what it really said about them. And obviously, one of the fears here when you talk about Planned Parenthood is a concept of biological annihilation. But we shall come to that another time and press play.
She had a project pushing contraception in the U.S. South. Here's one particular quote about it that stands out.
We don't want the word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
Very important. Margaret Sanger wanted to destroy black people. I guess it's taken till now for them to take the statues down and stuff, but or just remove it from certain kind of stuff. Not nice, but you find out.
And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea.
Very important as well. This is a slight topic, but Margaret Sanger realized, as many people do, that if you want to get to black people, go to the church. That's why many people are critical of some churches and what are they actually doing for black people, economically, spiritually, socially, and all that shillings that goes on. But yep.
If it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members.
Now that sounds pretty awful. Her supporters might argue she was simply emphasizing that she actually wanted to protect African American lives. And to be fair, later on, Dr. Martin Luther King did actually praise her for her contribution.
Martin Luther King, we can never make fun of a person who died for black people. He also praised Gandhi, another person who did not like black people, at least when he was younger.
To the black community. But the racist statement stands out, and Planned Parenthood is now making amends. There are talks with New York City about removing Sanger's name from a street sign near these offices on Bleecker Street.
Planned Parenthood was founded by a racist white woman. That is a part of history that cannot be changed.
Accusations of racism, sexism, and other isms are so widespread in America these days, many people are starting to take them with a lot less weight. Furthermore, it's doubtful that canceling Margaret Sanger will result in critics of Planned Parenthood dropping this long-standing allegation. If anything, it will confirm that they were right all along. Right. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
All right, well, there you go. So I just gave you an example, one of the first major feminists. Funny enough, if you go on her Wikipedia page, like I said, it isn't the be-all of scholarship, but it's funny how she has been removed the word feminism from her page, at least within the front paragraph. Maybe because it's damage control, maybe because it was never there. I don't know. But anyway, so today, let me switch now back to the panel. There we go, actually. So, which is more helpful for black women, African womanism, European feminism? Now, I've placed the link. I've got other videos, but I won't play them unless I really have to. One was more about womanism, Sleep to the Black Family. Yeah, of course, big up. There you go. One was about womanism, which I can play if we are waiting for people to join. But we set this space for black women to give us their opinions on African womanism and European feminism, their experience, all that good stuff there. So if you want, I'm going to post a link. And we're joined by Sister Betty, who's very opinionated on these topics, and so she should be, who was welcome to give her intro and what should I talk about. You may lead while I put the link in there, Sister Betty.
Okay. What I'd like to do is just make some points about feminism, because I find that, like, listening last week, many of the brothers sounded like they've never read any book by any a white feminist. That's one point I could tell. And I also got the feeling that they've never read any book by any black woman that classifies herself as a feminist. So, and what I find is, like, many black men have a tendency to get their idea of what feminism is from newspapers and media outlets run by white men, even though they claim that they're a black man and they're fighting white supremacy. A lot of their ideas of what feminism is comes from the very people that they claim to be fighting against. Yeah. Now, what you find is many black men are not against feminism. They're just against certain aspects. Because I yet to know any black man that has a problem with reproductive rights, which the feminists brought in, i.e., the right to contraception. I've seen many black men that are more than happy to sleep with black women and not have to worry about impregnating her. They have no problem with that. So this is not something that men brought in. This is the feminists, the white feminists. So when black men say that they're against feminism, you're not against feminism because you don't have any problem with the contraception, sleeping with a woman and not having to worry about having babies. Yeah. So you're not against feminists. What you're against is certain aspects of feminism. For example, if you look at the third wave of feminism, when you have the transgender agenda, where people that were born male can now say that they're female and self-identify. Those are the things that black men have a problem with. Yeah, but the other aspects of feminism, like for example, I don't know any black man that has a problem with a black woman having a bank account and not having to have a bank account in her father's name, brother's name, or having to ask to get to work, get paid, and the money to get put in her male guardian, or whether it's a husband, whether it's a father or brother. I don't know any black men advocating for this type of thing. Yeah, it's the feminists that brought that in again, that a woman had a right to earn money and have a bank account. Yeah, so this is the issue that be careful. What I would say to many black men is be careful when you say you're against feminism, because you're not actually against feminism. It's just certain aspects, and it tends to be the third wave and the fourth wave of feminism that many black men have a problem with.
I'm going to put some links in the chat for people to catch up. Thank you, Sister Bay. Very good info there, making distinctions between the waves and the benefits, and what some people might actually be angry at. And by all means, we can talk about that. We can talk about that. Do you have a view on that yourself, Sister Bay? Or is like the whole you mentioned third wave feminism with trans issues and men transitioning to women? Is that something that it's okay?
No, I don't agree with that. I don't think you can change your sex. I think you can change it outside, but I don't agree with that. But I think one of the third wave of feminism is individualism. Yeah, in where and self-identification. We're in the era of self-identification, where people can self-identify, and everybody else is meant to roll with it. But I do recognize the benefits that feminism has brought. For example, one of the first wave of feminism was the right to have a divorce and the right to have access to your children. Because prior to that feminism movement, you couldn't get a divorce from your husband without his consent, and you didn't have access to the children that you bared with him. So there's no woman in her right mind, whether she's a black woman or a white woman or a brown woman, whatever, who's going to have a problem with that. And I don't really know a lot of... I can say there's a considerable amount of men that wouldn't have a problem with that. Then the second wave of feminism, where they brought in the Rape Crisis Center, where women that were being abused by their husbands are right to go and have a divorce and then take your children into refuge to be in a safe environment. No problem with that. So I don't care whether it was a white woman that brought that in. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. So I think we have to remember, because I hear many black women that claim to be that I'm not a feminist and always attacking feminism, but you enjoy the rights that many of these white women have fought for.
Do you think when they say that, Sister B, that they're more talking about political movements rather than concepts? Let me
Can
give
you
you, let
expand
me give you
on
an example. Let me give you an example. So Black Lives Matter came through the deaths of black people in custody and protesting for a better tomorrow to make sure this can diminish. But obviously, some people saw certain, behavioral patterns and they associate that with Black Lives Matter, and they might disassociate that from that behavioral patterns, but not necessarily from the actual concept or original message. Do you think maybe feminism might have had that, as in it's less so from what people are doing, more so from the actual acts of the people rather than what it stands for? If that makes sense. That's all.
Yeah. I would add further to that is, I think as long as you live in the white man's world, in the white woman's world, yeah, and you are a woman, yeah, you're going to benefit from certain rights that the mainstream white woman has, yeah, and you don't get to segregate yourself and pretend like this is, you're not in a black country, yeah, where the only people that you're arguing with is other black people, yeah, you're in the white people's world, yeah, so you have to be able to interact with them, and the things that they fight for will ultimately affect you because you're also a woman, yeah, and the conflict that black women have with white women in terms of white supremacy, because white supremacy is at war with black people and black women, and we are black women, yeah, those are two different things, because we are both still women, but they are at war with the opposite, which is black, and we are black women. But that doesn't mean that you can't still benefit from some of the benefits that they have as women. And I think it's up to us. I wouldn't expect a white woman to fight for me as a black woman. I don't expect that white woman to tell my story as a black woman, because she's not black. Yeah, and blackness ain't a bit of paint, and that's up to me as a black woman to tell my story the same way she as a white woman does it.
So
And I
how do you
think
feel?
black women do that. They expect.
So it's just a bit. How do you feel about European feminists who historically have used black women for their own further gain, and either haven't really had any of black women's progress, best interests at their heart, or in regards to the Margaret Singer example we gave, actually want to destroy black women?
First and foremost, Margaret Singer wants to destroy and degenerate white people that she classes degenerate. It's not specific to black people with Margaret. She just wants to do everybody who she doesn't think is of a superior stock. Yeah, because she's a eugenics. Eugenics isn't just focused on black people. If anybody's read the bell curve, he's a eugenics. Goes on about working class white people who are on benefits, calls them a degenerate. Yeah, so it's not fair to say she's her only focus is black people. It's not. It's
I don't think
anyone.
anyone said that, Sister. But I think what they're saying is when you move from something that's at your best interest, whenever something it crosses that, then that's where you have to have your defense mechanisms up. Like, okay, I don't think I can benefit from this action. Obviously, a person who damages might damage more than one particular people group. In her eugenics, you're going to be gunning for non-white people, people who are ill, and also people who might be seen as not intelligent.
Yeah,
From that,
but those people can still be white. So it's not it's not just about race. It's about white people who might be disabled and stuff like that. But
yes.
that she's a white supremacist. That is the whole thing of white supremacy. That they're not here to make us safe and to lift us up. Margaret's part of that whole idea that whiteness is best, the white man's burden, and we know what is right for people. The majority of people in the world are people of color. So I'm not surprised by any of that crew.
So, are you familiar? How's your interaction with womanism, the movement of womanism, and how it came about, and what's your opinions on the motivation behind why If you don't know, that's fine. But I'm sure you probably know more than me, to be honest.
No, I've heard about it. I've heard about it. You know, it's Alice Walker, that one that wrote The Colour Purple. I heard that she was the one that whatchamacallit, defined the word.
Yes.
But I couldn't tell you the difference between, you know, like someone like Bell Hooks, that African American feminist. She says she's a feminist, and who's that lady from the Black Panthers, the one with the curly hair, the light skinned chick, Angela Davis.
Angela Davis. Yep.
Yeah, she says she's a feminist. Those are obviously black women that are feminists, but I don't know the difference between their ideology and Alice Walker, who says she's a womanist.
Right. I think originally what it was to have a collective movement that had black women at the center of it, and also and I think what some people were saying was there was a war between the European woman and the European man, the white woman, the white man, for certain rights, but many black women actually had those rights in the household of the men, as in like it was very different, and also how power was shared in the black community, especially in the churches and stuff, was very different from how power was shared in the European community. So at a certain point, black women in the Americas said that actually this is a different fight we have, and also how they wanted to interact with their husbands and men. Very different, and the importance of when it comes to having a family. And I think where some of them became a bit problematic was the value of being a mother in a household or in a collective group versus the continuing emphasis on same gender loving kind of practices and this kind of stuff. But once again, the womanists will have to speak for themselves. I can only go by what I've been said. And that's why we invite everyone to research and also tell your experience. But Sister Bet has come and she's given us some amazing information for us to contemplate. And hopefully, I've also put the link in the group family. So if you guys want to jump in and have your say, just click, just find it. It's the it says SteamYard in it, and it should send you in here to have your opinion.
You know what I would say as well, also, what I would say, I don't have any problem with any black woman if she wants to make her term what saying African and womanism. You know, she can do her. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's irrelevant to me if a black woman creates a word called womanism, because I know I'm a woman. I don't need another black woman to come and tell me I'm a woman. I know who I am anyway. No, I'm not really in the business of following other women.
I mean, you're probably right, but there was just a iron out of it. I don't think when the black women created womanism, it was like to coin a word to make women feel like women. I think what it was realizing that the whole collective movement of feminism, from that standpoint, wasn't inclusive of the black identity woman, of the woman, the black woman's needs. So they practice a behavioral pattern of coming together with other like-minded people of the same nature to form their variant of something that is necessary for black women, as in black women's needs are at the heart of it.
Yeah, but maybe what I'm saying is they kind of coin that word all they like. But as we found out last week, many black women and many people had no idea about this womanism. So they couldn't have been that great at creating a movement or something to liberate African women.
Right.
Because I've done fine all myself without this womanist thing. And it sounds great. It sounds, by the way you're explaining it, it sounds great. It sounds good. But I ain't really heard of it.
Well, let me jump in.
For me to embrace something, I need to know what I'm going to get from it. I've got to hear from these so-called womanism people. Because for someone like Alice Walker, Alice Walker, for one, isn't she a lesbian? And isn't she the one that wrote The Colour Purple? And The Colour Purple, the way it portrays black men, isn't it one of the most just traumatizing stories ever? And the black people are the slave. They're always going to be suffering forever. Then you got some black man that is sexually abusing. There's some, and that story keeps on getting reworked. Yeah, I'm yet to hear a black woman write a beautiful like love story of black love or family coming together and uplifted their people and being celebrated around the world. And Alice Walker's book wasn't it made into a film by that Steven Spielberg, whatever his name is, the Jew guy. Yeah. So he made lots of money from it. Oprah, and we know Oprah was abused as a child, and lo and behold, Oprah's in it, and then how many years later, Oprah pops up with this same type of disgusting, depressing story called Precious. That's my problem with Alice Walker. I don't know, why is it that in America, the only black women that tend to get celebrated are the ones that write stories about black men sexually abusing children?
Well, there's a lot of info you push there, and that is something
I would worry about any movement pushed by that woman, Alice Walker.
What I would say is when you talk about certain movements, they're usually a collective body of people come together to do certain kind of stuff, and it becomes international. So even though she coined the term, the concepts and that there are other women of different ideologies, different backgrounds who push for. I think last week we looked at one called Africana womanism, and that was by Cleora Hudson Wims, I think it was. And just now before you joined in, we had I want to get these names right. Cleora Hudson, the same person, so I just said twice now. Yeah, there's a Chikwini Okuju, who's also one. I'm looking at it, to be honest. So the thing is, before we get there, you mentioned certain things about not hearing certain philosophies and stuff, and I think that is the underlying pinning stuff when it comes to why this show is there. There are many great black people who do things who, unfortunately, black people don't have the network, social connects to actually get certain ideas across. And hopefully, the Black Band Broadcast can be one of those small, ideas that can get, connect ideas, connect people together. But just because we haven't heard of something doesn't mean that there isn't any value in what it might be trying to push. And I definitely think from the start of this show.
Yeah, but maybe one moment. Isn't like my thing is Alice Walker's a lesbian. I'm not a lesbian. What's a black lesbian gonna do for me? You know what I mean? I'm like
you're saying some good. You're saying some good thing, and that's why I would say if you wanted to hear about Africana womanism. That will probably speak to you more directly. I'll put let me put the link for the people. So they spell it Africana womanism, and we covered this last week. And the same issue Sister Betty is having now is the same issue that the Africana woman has had, where they put a strong emphasis on marriage and family and household, and they weren't necessarily connected to the whole lesbian, homosexual lifestyle. So this was a bit problematic for them. Hence why there are always there's always different ideas and departments and stuff. One thing I would say that it probably works. Obviously, you can learn from anywhere, but there is a value in black people coming together with black people to work on black issues.
Yeah, of course there is, but we always have to remember, like, Black Lives Matter. The three women that started it, two of them are black lesbians. So what I would say, why is it that in America, the only black women that seem to get a lot of traction when it comes to black women's rights tend to be lesbians?
Right.
And that's pushed.
Yeah, well, that's a very, very, very good topic, and that's something that we will be covering on. And it isn't necessarily just black lesbians. Obviously, black homosexuals as well, the male, same gender loving. They also get a high push. And then, once again, it comes down to, if we're going to create a paradigm where a non-black person is funding something, we know that there's certain things that Francis Cress-Welsing book says it all and stuff, but there's certain concepts that seems more dangerous. We just looked at Margaret Sanger, who earlier was trying to eradicate black people through not having children and this kind of stuff. So we know that this concept is problematic to many Europeans. But as I speak, we're going to welcome Brother Kel. Welcome, Brother Kel. How's it going?
How you doing, Brother Ivan? How you doing, Sister Betty?
Welcome all. If you're just catching what we're talking about, we've showed 1 or 2 videos, and we're talking about European feminism or African women, which one is more helpful to black women. And Sister Bay has started very lovely saying that many people they don't have that much issues with the feminist concepts from the first and maybe second wave, but I think it was when the third wave came over where it started to become problematic. And unfortunately, Sister Bay hasn't heard too much of womanism, but she's aware that maybe 1 or 2 or maybe just one woman is might be more so same gender loving promoting, and this isn't necessarily something that Sister Bay is best interest in. And I also mentioned that unfortunately, depending on who asks, it seems to be many of the black women who are lesbians seem to be getting the highest push in when it comes to European funded concepts, which obviously from a black betterment standpoint, we can't complain because black betterment is about black people doing things for themselves. So funding from non-black people isn't really on the books. But nevertheless, Sister Bay brought it up, and it is for us to to go over. But before I say that, and welcome, let me just big up Sister Tash, who has said that she has tried to promote the show. Let's see what she said. I think I've promoted this channel everywhere. Big up, Raven. Thank you very much. Hopefully, you can jump on anytime you're welcome, and your guests. And it's good to know that people are promoting Black Betterment. This show is for the people, and that's why we put the link out for you to talk. Brother Kel, take it. What would you like to say?
Yeah, the Honourable Marcus Garvey said that if the black people knew themselves, then tomorrow would be a different reality. I have noticed exactly what Sister Betty was saying in regards to allowing the African descendants who practice a different sexual behavior to promote and represent, the so-called African womanism. But at the same time, we do have the blueprint, don't we? I mean, Nani Ashantiwa, Queen Arawalo made this clear, Queen Nzinga, Taito Tutala from East Africa. They all practiced the African womanism, all of them did. It may not be the label, because obviously the campaigning is African womanism, but on the blueprint and the structure of it, they all practiced it. The African woman from ancient time, that's what they were practicing. So that, I believe, will eradicate its conception of the African woman who is for us, and at the same time there's a bit of a deficiency in regards to perhaps something that's not practiced in the ancient way. But African womanism has been out from a long time, ancient.
Oh, I think Brother Cal's internet has cut, but he did drop some jewels before he left, saying that yes, there is, there's many practices in African societies that collectively come up under womanism, but at the time might not have been seen. So, and Brother Cal is back. Welcome back, Dodgy Internet, but you're back again.
Welcome back, brother. Welcome back, sister.
Yeah, you were in the middle, or maybe towards the end of your speech there.
Did you repeat that again, Brother Raven? I didn't.
I think you pretty much said everything you want to say before you cut.
What you was gonna say? You were saying.
No, I was just letting people know what you just summarizing the stuff you said on the hopes of your return. To be honest, and just so you know, obviously, Sister Bear and Brother Cal talked about same gender loving community in the black collective, and by all means, we will be setting time aside to really unpack, the same gender loving community and just we have to have a dialogue, because obviously this show obviously values family structure and this kind of stuff, and at a certain point everyone in the black community has to understand how to communicate to each other and live with each other, performing towards betterment. And sometimes certain ideas might challenge certain people, and we want to talk about it in a constructive way.
Yeah, but Raven, my issue isn't black women, lesbians, and let me, like, so people don't misquote me. My issue is, why is it that black lesbians seem to be getting such a big mouthpiece, and me that's just heterosexual women, and the majority of black women are heterosexual? How come we don't get that big mouthpiece? And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe this is an agenda.
Yes.
I mean, because why is your microphone bigger than my microphone, and you're the minority in the black community?
Yeah. Well, we covered this before, and we'll cover it continuous. Two things. We always start with the philosophy that black betterers, we have to build for ourselves, so we can't expect anyone to give us anything. But now that it's happening, we will say this, that you tend to find when power, especially from the European community, whoever's ideas and behavioral patterns is most threatening to the power structure, then you might get a bit of a pushback, and the homosexual man and the homosexual woman from the black community are less threatening to that power structure. And obviously, people disagree with this. You have to understand that the reason why Margaret Sanger's statue, as we showed earlier, is being removed is because she obviously saw some kind of threat in some kind of way of life that she was trying to maintain, where she thought it was necessary to try to wipe out all black people. So, some people go to the extreme of wanting to wipe people out. Some people don't want people to hang around in certain areas of power, and all this kind of stuff. So this is why this is what I have observed. But then other people might have their own opinions, their own understandings. And by all means, you click on the link and jump in. But I end by saying this. The whole idea isn't for us to ponder why non-black people are funding black people. It's to get a network going where we can fund our own stuff. And that really is the greatest solution you're going to have. But in order to do it, we have to understand what solidarity looks like, and trust and betterment. And that's why this show, as humble as it might be now, hopefully it grows in popularity and in ideas and philosophy, because the philosophy is better. This show is dust on the feet of someone else compared to the philosophies that we push, because showing the benefits of black people helping black people is very important. And I suspect that's why the concept of African womanism, which is black women helping black women on black issues, is a very important institution and idea to push forward, because it puts African women at the center of the movement, and that's important.
Can I say this? I think one of the things I noticed as well last week is, and this is what a white feminists do. What they do is they go back in time and they pick women that they admire and then claim that she was a feminist, even though at her time she never heard of the word, and she was just on that womanhood thing, and she was just there doing her women's rights. Yeah, and I've seen some of these black feminists do the same thing. And I found them, ciphering through Nigerian history, picking out, Fela's mother, who was a woman and rights activist, and then claimed that she's a feminist, even though Fela's mother knew nothing about the word feminism. And this is what I'm seeing, that these African womanist people doing the same thing, ciphering through history, going back in time and claiming that they were womanists when they didn't know nothing about that. They didn't know the term womanist. And I think it's really dishonest as well.
Well,
I mean, just,
let me add to that.
Why go back in time and rewrite history?
Very strong point. I've heard the argument push a lot, and it's a very good argument to have. One thing, just to add to your earlier point, Sister Kushi said she knows that many female filmmakers who are doing really well. There is a massive push of same-gender loving women who are filmmakers. So we wish them well in their art and their success. But just something to note. So to answer the question, and not necessarily pushed to me, but I'll ask it as best I can. I heard this argument before, and it is a very good argument to push. I would say this: there are certain things that they tend to not be labeled for certain reasons. As time goes by, they become labeled. So you might be maybe vegetarianism, someone who doesn't eat meat. And certain people, because of what the environment they're in and how they view animals, they won't eat the animals. And then they never saw themselves as vegetarian. They're just living their life. But as time goes by in a society where most people eat meat, they seem it's necessary to actually define that process. So when they look historically, they go, oh, this woman or guy was living the same lifestyle as me, but he just didn't name it then because there was no need. I think some people do that. And I think because maybe the structure of life has been so far removed in certain areas that historically people just got things right. And I think womanism and any kind of ism, to an extent, is trying to return to a point where things were correct or work better in the best interest of the people involved. And I think there might not have been any need to call a person a womanism because it was just naturalism for them. But in today's age, where some things are not no longer defined as natural, it needs to be termed. And this happens in many things. It happens in music. It happens in so many things where you have to define things because it changed so much that you want to show the division between this thing and that thing because it's so opposite. And but that's like transvestite and transsexual. They had to make distinctions because a lot of people put them together, even though they're not really the same thing.
Well, if you look at if you just like Google the word womanism, you get / black feminism, and then before they used to just call them women's rights activists or black women rights activists. It's called womanhood, isn't it? I just what is the benefit? Yeah, this is what I'm saying. What is the benefit of me that's on a black woman's right thing? Defining myself as an African womanist. What I want to know what I'm getting out of it before I take on a word. That's what I'm saying, Raven, isn't it?
Good point.
I need to know the definition of the word and what I'm going to get out of it. I don't want to sign up for something that I don't.
Now, Sister Bay,
that's
Sister
lesbian,
Bay,
isn't it?
The thing Sister Bay says is an echo of what many people think. That's why it's important to have a voice, and we thank her for it. And I'll try to best explain now, but this is a ongoing process where we'll be learning back and forth as we go along. But what the question asked was, what is the benefits of any black woman saying I am this, right? And that's a good question. What do you benefit from it? This show does promote the concept that there is a historical observation that many people who identify or identified as black, whenever they get with other groups in every kind of situation, you tend to find that the agenda or the needs of the blacks people are always pushed to the bottom of the pile. And there's many reasons for this, but one of the reasons might be many black people have been trained subservience and not to stand up for a certain kind of needs or to put other people's needs before their own. And we see this. If all you need to do is observe me in Speaker's Corner and see that the biggest people who are speaking against any kind of betterment than black people and kumbayasm and this kind of stuff is really ingrained in many black people's mind. So the value, as I see it, is you have, I don't like the word safe space. Just something about this seems weird to me, but I'll use it now. There is a safe space for black women to talk about black women issues without a non-black woman interjecting other needs that can easily completely lopside the agenda that the black African women are setting. So this is one standard benefit, that this is a black feminist movement for black women. Brother Cal, I understand you want to say something.
Yeah, this goes back in African history, and I've noticed that the Europeans have, adopted it. But names and meanings, right, is very, very powerful. You could have a meaning and a name and surround yourself with that energy to empower your campaign. So, for example, in that, whenever you go out in the city centre, you'll see a Lloyd's Bank. Now, Lloyd's was a slave owner, but if you look at it carefully, because it's surrounded with his energy and the meaning of what he represents, right, it can be campaigned to draw a lot of people to become a client or a member of Lloyd's TSP. Do you understand? Now, when we're saying the African womanism, right, is that we may be practicing it subconsciously, but it needs to be consciously, because one thing we don't want to do is that whenever adversaries and enemies try to intervene with your mindset and psychology, right, you do need like a template, a blueprint, so you can decipher and erase when they're trying to manipulate with their agenda. I believe that you do need to understand things subconsciously, but you need to be aware consciously. And we do need these labels. The African womanism puts the capital, it removes the ideology of feminism, what the Europeans come with, or the Asians or the Middle Eastern, it makes it them specifically African womanism. We may not have heard the name in the past, but it's been practiced. And names and meanings is very powerful, man. Surrounding yourself with your ancestry and the energies of it. Your campaign is ultimately going to prevail.
Let me just add this before Sister Bay jumps in. Just to quickly, you'll be jumping next, but just to add on, and just to concept about names. The homosexual movement, they adopted the name gay, because gay originally means happy, and because most people thought that homosexuality people were sad, mad, and bad, and this kind of stuff, they said, well, let us take a name that represents happiness, so that at least when people call us, they'll be calling us a happy name, and hopefully psychologically people will make being gay and being happy synonymous. Perhaps I could be wrong. Womanism was a similar thing, as in woman and stuff, but once again, black women have to come and push why they do things. But Sister Bear, you have a question? Go ahead, or at least an answer.
And I would just say that I don't like the term womanism, and I wouldn't sign up to it. So because I'm not too sure about Alice Walker, and I just don't like the term. In my day, it was called womanhood, and that's what I'm sticking with, womanhood. For all the sisters, the handbag squad that like the term African womanism, do you? I wish you well. I hope we can collaborate, and find a common ground. But I ain't gonna be signing up to this word, African womanism, because I don't know what's wrong with the term womanhood. I don't know. I don't see why we need a new term.
Womanhood. Good point there. I actually I won't go on, Carl. You said you want to say something. Go ahead.
And can I just say also with what Kushi said, exactly womanhood, you don't hear the term much, probably because calling yourself a woman is offensive. And this is what I mean, because now the transgenders, now this is what they're saying in when you say adult, what's a female? I think, what does she say? What that lady say? Adult. I don't know what she says when she tries to describe what a woman is. And there's I think she called Rose. Was it Rosie? Kush. There's a white lady that did an ad. I think it's in Liverpool in a billboard. Adult human female. Yeah. And
adult human female. Right, okay.
Female. And I think she got sued because there was a gay man that took offense to her describing what a woman was. And it was all on the news and everything. So, do you know what I mean? So for me, this type of thing, where now we've got to change to the name African womanism,
Hold on. Let me add to that, because you said a lot of good points that I should add to as you're saying it. The African womanism movement, this stuff is, you're looking at 70s and 80s and stuff, right? But you have a good point about today's trans movement and pronouns and identity kind of based stuff, and that's something we're gonna cover. And I am interested in black people of today who are really up in all that kind of the lingo and know more than me to jump on and educate us on that. But what I would say is, just like I give black people the concept to think that when black people come with other black people, other non-black people, you tend to find that the black needs will be pushed to the side. Whenever you meet with these other kind of groups, I suspect that black men transition into certain things will get more of a push than women transition into men. And also in the whole sport argument, I noticed that this Australian netball thing happened yesterday where some netball boy team dominated every single team in some league in Australia, and not people are best pleased, and the history of men or women who have transitioned to being women winning the fights in the MMA and the athletics. So it's definitely something we'll talk about. That's the thing I push out there. But carry on, Sister Bear, just to add that to that.
But yeah, maybe I would say also, because I made a point last week about Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry, they say don't know how far it's true. Maybe the Americans can tell me how he's made his money. That there was bare black people that went to see a man dress up as a woman and made him a millionaire.
Yes.
And it's very worrying when a black people, especially black women, will go to support a black man, dress up in a dress, put lipstick on, put a wig on, and play at being a woman in several movies, and not find that offensive, and not find that just your definition of what a black man is. Is this the type of black man that you want in your bedroom? And it's just, and the way he portrays black women, the stereotypes of the mammy, all the bitter, his movies are very degrading to black women. There's all the anger. What's it? The Diary of a Black Woman. And this is what I'm saying, that in the black community, we've got this sickness ourselves. We have to ask ourselves, why are we spending our money to make a black man that wants to wear a dress? Yeah? A millionaire. Why? When black women have so many issues, and when you look at how he portrays black women, why couldn't he, if he wanted to play if he wanted to portray a big black woman, yeah, why can't he actually find a woman that's big? There's so many big and talented black women. What's that woman from Precious, the chubby one, the pretty girl? What's her name? Monique. Beautiful black woman. Why can't she portray it? Why does a black man wearing the dress, a better black woman than a black woman herself?
Well, let's jump in, because a lot of the things you're saying, Sister May, are connected to other things that we just want to connect the dots. And many people have said the first question is why is another question, why is it many same gender loving women, lesbians, have been given so much opportunities? And we talk about the non-threatening nature of how people perceive things and how power works when giving out trinkets of power. But this also trickles into the whole historical of how men have been labeled as aggressive, black men I should say, labeled as aggressive. And one of the ways to historically in the entertainment scene to make black men less aggressive or less threatening to non-black viewers is to feminize them, put them in dresses, or make them comedy shows where the jokes are inwards on themselves. So this is something that we see consistently. So I think now I know that Tyler Perry was a homeless man. He built an empire, and we have to big him up. And he is a black-owned company, so we have to big that up. But I understand that he's trying to make money, and this is what he decided to do. But the area of interest I am is the many black men who were approached to wear dresses, who did the one. And I think I know Dave Chappelle, who ran away to Africa at one point because he wasn't best pleased with how he was treated on his show. He mentioned that there was a high pressure on him to wear a dress, and a lot of black men. I think even recently now there's a rapper called Kid Cudi who's now made his 7th or 2nd appearance in a dress at some kind of award show, and these are men who claim to be straight and obviously this kind of stuff. I think it's the biggest thing.
Can I just say, look, just ask yourself, could a black woman go and do a whole movie and dress up like a man and see the black community flock to see a black woman play a black man and then make the producer a millionaire? I don't think so. I don't know how many black people would pull up for me to dress up as a man and then play at being a man, but black people will pull up for this Tyler Perry to put a dress on and make him a millionaire.
Well, we do see many. Go ahead, Brother Cal.
I remember you done a show called High Principle, Error Prone. You remember?
High Principle and Error Prone on the screen at the moment. The diagram we use to determine whether something is error prone, high principle.
There was an image with the rappers promoting the African females when they're doing the African twerking, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And I said before that they're gonna have to do that, brother. As much as degrading and error prone it is, because we are not organized, right?
Yes.
They're gonna have to do that. Do you understand? Now, Tyler Perry, when you analyze him, brother, first of all, he's not a Pan-Africanist, brother. So we should never ever assume and be imaginative to someone who doesn't follow the principles of Pan-Africanism. The second thing that is not Agaviite, but what Tyler Perry understands is that the African community have low self-esteem, love everybody else, and fight over labels. So in order for me to get them to fund me, I'm gonna have to make them laugh, because it's easy to make us laugh on that. You know what I mean? We like to laugh more than organize and be politically strategic. But he understands that very well. So that's why I said, for me, brother, African womanism is definitely needed, because Charlotte Bass promoted it and very successful. Do you understand? And Anna J. Cooper as well. And could we say, brother, when it comes to Alice Walker, right, that she would more be a black betterment builder than a black betterer?
Yes. So let's break that down. We're going to break that down for the people at home. Let's break it down. So one of the things we when it comes to the history of what we call woke or conscious, whatever people use, when black people trying to do better for ourselves, we always find a certain point where black people end up preaching to the choir, meaning a small group of enlightened black people talk to a small group of enlightened people, and there isn't a principle that allows other people to get involved because they've made a choice and they're part of a certain group. So when we break down black betterment, we break down two categories. We have the black betterer, meaning a person who's trying to help black people in every single area of activity whenever it's constructively possible, meaning their entire life is dedicated in all areas to do something that benefits black people. And then you have people who live their life, but they want to take out a certain portion of their life and do something particular for black people. And I think, and we call those the black betterment builders. They are the builders. They're not, their entire life is a betterment. They might not choose to marry a black person, unfortunately. They might do a whole lot of activities that is really counterproductive, to be honest. But they decide to build a black university or a black cinema or a black boat or whatever it might be. So in that aspect, we give them credit as a black betterment builder in that aspect. And I think this is what Brother Kel was talking about. So even though Alice Walker has, might do some things that might not correlate with betterment or Pan-African or anything like that, there is one or two dedicated things she's done that is very handy. And I think separating black women to do a black woman only thing is very valuable, when we know that every time black people come together with non-black people, it is almost a guarantee that the needs of black people will always be at the very, very bottom. So that's why this entire show, even if the show crumbles, into the ground, the most important thing is the lifestyle philosophy that is black people helping black people on black issues for betterment lifestyle. If you can remember that concept, you're laughing. And then we move on to the next step, which I shall go another time, about how you then turn that lifestyle into a fellowship of dedicated people doing stuff to influence business, media, and education. Because once you understand it, whether it's any kind of philosophy that is about being high principled and constructive, you will then form fellowships where you infiltrate or create certain kind of institutions that are dedicated to upholding these principles. So you will understand a certain balance that maybe dress up a woman is funny, but you realize that it isn't beneficial to women or to black people, and there's better ways we can do certain things. And also there's also argument that only black people have to face, and that is if you're in the diaspora, you look at, say, European television, you have a scope for many different ideas. So you can have the villain, you have the bad guy, you have the guy who's dresses as a woman, and then you have the heartthrob and all this other kind of dynamics. So whenever you see one thing, it doesn't flavor your opinion on Europeans or white people. Unfortunately, because black people are represented, whenever you see certain kind of media outlets, if you see a collection of men in dresses, then this is going to really help flavor how you view men, as well as if you're not seeing constructive black man or constructive black woman in the household raised in constructive black families, this is going to heavily flavor your opinion on black people as not being good parents or not being loving household, and then you might see a rise in miscegenation, and we also have a slight problem with many self-esteem black men who might decide, without them knowing, that they don't find black women attractive, we've done a show on this. This is obviously not adequate behavior, and we're going to try to fix that. The psychology of self-hatred. But I've spoken too much. I just broke down what Brother Kel was going to carry on. Brother Kel, I've just tried to give a diagram of what you're saying.
I mean, brother, when you read up on Alice J. Cooper, right? This woman, this African descendant, brother, was a very educated academic. You know, she reached a level which is not surprising because the African woman, since in ancient times, she's always reached a high level in cerebral mental capacity. But there was a time where her sister, was suffering with an illness, right? And this African descendant, right, quit her job, quit studying to look after her sister's 6 kids, as well as help the husband as well, right? You see, this is African womanism. You understand? This woman's using the principles of Pan-Africanism, Garveyism. So when the European strategies are trying to enter that household, she can block it with Pan-Africanism. And this is where the African queens globally, they do need to put the African and the womanism, because womanhood, right, has now been infiltrated by those who was not created as a woman in the beginning. Now, this is a problem. So in anything, as we've spoken before, this life is political and everything campaigning. So we should campaign African womanism to eradicate those who feel like they can enter the womanhood based upon ideologies that do not make any sense. African womanism should be the campaign, and it already was anyway in the early 1900s. You know, as I said, my heroes represented that movement, and it prevailed, man. So definitely, the African woman needs to lock onto African womanism.
What I would say, and one of my people that I really admire is Elaine Brown of the Black Panther Party, and I think she might have run the Black Panther Party at the time where Huey Newton and a few of the other comrades were locked up or dead. Yeah, and she's known for campaigning for women's rights and improving women's status in the Black Panther Party, and as well as the breakfast clubs for the children. But you don't hear her being called a feminist, and you don't hear her being called African womanism. She just is. She is a woman, and she's on that womanhood thing. She doesn't need a label to know what she is and who she is as a woman, and that it's her duty to make things better for other African women. And I feel like what African womanism thing and all these labels, many people are just they want to be part of the label, but they don't want to do the work. They want to get hooked on the label. You shouldn't need something like that to be defined to know what to do. Because if you're a woman and you've got 2 balls, which are called ovaries, and a uterus, you should already know that you're a woman. And that's why you go and look at Elaine Brown and what she did. The sister is fierce, but you don't hear. You'll hear her cussing out those white feminists when they interview her and ask her, "Did they, in the Black Panther Party, were you told to make the breakfast?" And she went, "No, we weren't told to make the breakfast. Whoever was there, whether you were a man or woman, if the children needed their breakfast, you're gonna do the job." But obviously, them reporters, those white people, came with an agenda to say that the black women, were oppressed in the Black Panther Party. But she come out and just told the truth. And this is what many black women need to do. Don't get you can join up to this African womanism thing if you want. If you feel like it resonates with your soul, do you? But don't get sold on it to the point where you feel like that if you don't sign up to it, you can't improve black women's rights. Because that's how they sell Black Lives Matter, don't they? If you don't want to be part of Black Lives Matter, that somehow you don't want to improve the rights of black people. And that's what worries me when people start pushing this African womanist thing, because before you know it, they'll be telling anybody who doesn't agree with it, or Alice Walker got any type of problem with the definition of the word, that all suddenly that you're not for black women's rights.
Interesting point there.
Well, Brother Raven, as I said, man, Althea Jones was very prolific. It's a pleasure that I've, met her. And obviously, those who know about that movement are, some of my relatives were definitely in that movement. But one thing that they used to tell me, right, and those who are wondering, the Black Panther is a branch of Garveyism. Yeah. But one thing that they used to say is that the thing is what messed up that movement, right? And those who are in doubt, then they should go and sit down and talk to Althea Jones, right? And any Black Panther member. And they will honestly say that the socialism messed things up. You see, when you start calling yourself black, the Chinese can come in there, the Japanese can come in there, the Asian, they can come in there. But when you start using a label of African, everyone knows the African from the non-African, and that you can play games all you want, but everyone knows the African from the non-African. And that's what I'm saying is that we do need to have a label to separate ourselves from everybody else. Labels have always been used in history. The creator of the heavens and the earth uses labels to describe himself. Our political freedom fighters have always used labels because it's campaigning. As I said, you got to surround yourself with energies that promote a political campaigning for you. And the African womanism, right, it blocks any form of non-African people coming involved or any ideology of it. But it's for those who really want revolutionary change that the African womanism is the solution. I mean, why would I ignore the blueprints of the, Serena, the chiefess from the past that practice it, and the ones from the early 1900s, and then I'm going to, no disrespect to anybody, look at their ideology and dismiss female scholars that put it to work? I've gone and lost my damn mind. I would never do that, because they've shown the way, and the African womanism is the solution for the African females globally.
Yeah, I think what I would say there is, I think Sister Bear and Brother Carl conk sank on the head, and I think they both correlate in the sense of where, these labels are tools to be used to do a particular thing. So the label without the work is irrelevant, right? It's a fashion statement. But the whole basis of this show, or more so the concept of this broadcast, is recognizing that if a community doesn't try to fix its own issues, the chances are it won't be fixed. And I think separation from non-Africans or non-Black people when it comes to doing things for self is a practice we observe very well in non-Black communities when other communities are doing their own thing. But because of the years of subservience and self-consciousness and self-hatred, many Black people do not see the value in this concept. So what I get from womanism is very simple. Black women doing things that Black women need to do, and they labeled it, so I don't argue. If they called it, supreme goddesses, whatever, whatever you want to call it, right? But it comes down to Black women realizing there's a special needs for Black women that they're going to come together and operate. And whatever word that is, I support that word, because that word is their thing. You got to understand that even within the behavioral patterns of I support a constructive Black man and constructive Black woman making a constructive Black family, but there are behavioral patterns that I don't understand, which they call the homosexual pattern, and people are same gender loving, and I don't know much about that. But what I do hear from the homosexual is within the gay community, the so-called gay community, they find that Black people's needs once again are at the very bottom. So then there are people who come together and say, you know what, we black people who are identify gay for whatever reason, whatever has happened to make them do that, we identify same gender loving. Now, I'm going to support black gay people separating from all other gay people to work on black gay issues, and then let us have a discussion about what it means to be same gender loving within this kind of movement or whatever you're doing, and we can facilitate a question. But the very basic that I co-sign is black people doing things with black people of the same nature, because it's less likely to be corrupted. Well, much less likely to be corrupted. But and once again, we don't tend to have the same gender loving community on here, but you're welcome to jump on. We have mentioned some things that we do try to separate. So if we are talking about issues to do with black people being killed, it has nothing to do with transgenderism, nothing to do with marriage. And we do try not to, muddy the waters with different philosophies when it comes to trying to have a basic agenda on the particular purpose. And this is what we're doing, isn't it? It's this is we're as a collective group, we're at level one. We're at level one, and then when we fail, we go back to level one. You see, so but the basics of how we're going to get to level two is understanding that black people helping black people on black issues, or African people helping African people on African issues, however you want to word it, is necessary. And whoever teaches you otherwise, I suspect, is the enemy of black people, whether they know it or not. So this is the basics, and as a community, from my observation, we seem to struggle with this basic concept.
Can I read something? Like Elaine Brown, the Black Panther, so she was the only female leader of the Black Panther Party from 1974 to 1977, when her co-founder, Huey Newton, was exiled in Cuba. It says, a black woman in the Black Power movement was considered at best irrelevant. A woman asserts herself was a pariah. If a black woman assumed a role of leadership, she was said to be eroding black manhood and to be hindering the progress of the black race. She was an enemy of black people. I knew I had to muster something mighty to manage the Black Panther Party. And that's what I would say to many black women. That is what you will face in the black community. Even though you're there trying to help the black community, many people will tell you that if you take the role as a black woman, that you're trying to erode black manhood. Not that the black man has to find his own balls and do his thing. If you're a man, you could never be shook of a woman, As they say, what did they say? The saying, behind every good man is a good woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have to do as a woman. All these black men that run around saying, oh, welfare took us out of the home. She don't want me no more. She got a check from the government. These are just weak ass men that don't know how to be men. Yeah? Because there ain't no check that can ever replace a man and a father and a husband. Yeah? And I would just say to black women as well that, you don't get your sense of what it is to be a black woman from a man anyway. Do you know what I mean? You're a woman, you know who you are. Do your thing.
Yeah.
You get your sense of what it is to be a woman. It is women that train women.
Good points. Let me add to that. I think one of the challenges we push forward in the show is we highlight a concept that I call benchmark rebranding, where the benchmark has been set much lower. And one thing we have to agree is throughout history, many challenges have been placed on black people, especially and black men. However, that is now part of your basic template of life. That should be expectation. So we shouldn't lower the bar. We should try to reach those particular goals. So if women are doing good, and we want women to do good, there should be no expectation that a woman should sabotage her progress to make a man feel better. better yet, a man should rise to the challenge and get to where he needs to get. But yeah, that's I don't know if Brother Kiln wanted to say anything.
Yeah, but Brother Raven, if we give the example of Queen Erewala, born in Somalia, right? Now she was facing a problem. The African men forgot that African continent was developed by unity of the black man and the black woman. So this queen, and I support everything what she did because I understand what she had to do. She had to teach the men a lesson, right? And she had to go to extreme lengths, whether it be, castrating them or doing certain things, right? Now, it may be extreme, like, okay, going to that length, but the African continent was civilized with unity of the African man and the African woman. If one does something that goes against the best interest of the race, which at that time the Portuguese were on their way trying to conquer, then I believe the black woman must use certain tactics to wake the black men up. One of the things that they should do is they need to stop sleeping with the black men who are not doing any form of revolutionary political campaigning. It doesn't make any sense and stuff, right? The European woman doesn't do that. And the Asian woman doesn't do that either, or the Middle Eastern woman. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that they need to, retract their feminine gifts away from the African man who doesn't understand you need to campaign a political agenda with economically, right? And also using strategic weaponry mentally and sometimes physically. They need to get into that. And that's why I'm saying with the African womanism, brother, why I'm promoting it so well. These were practiced in ancient Africa as well as in the 1900s. That's why I'm saying why I'm promoting it, because the African woman does need to be very strategic when it comes to the African man. Leave the ones who are not synchronized, leave them alone. Do you understand?
Good
African
point,
womanism will eliminate that, because one of the weakness of men, right, is that we love the feminine gifts. If you take that away and you hold your ground, you'll see the black man developing, building economics. I guarantee.
So,
You know what I would say about also another reason why I don't like this African womanism thing is because not every black woman is an African. You've got people in Papua New Guinea. These people are not Africans, but there are many black women there suffering, and they're at the bottom of the pile. Australia, there are many black women there. They're natives. They're not Africans. So for me, I don't want to sign up to something that says African womanism, because if I'm here to fight for black women, I'm not going to exclude women in Papua New Guinea who is as black as me, people in Australia as black as me, and then tell them, oh, you got to say you're an African. And that's the problem with this Garveyite thing. Yeah, if Garvey's banging on about African, but not everybody, black and African is not exclusive. There are people that are black in the world that are not of African descent. And they're at the bottom of the pile too. As Raven calls them, the greater black. So that's why for me, I'm just going to stick with this womanist term, womanhood term.
Well, to be fair to that, Sister Bay, when you look up the word womanism, African womanism, you tend to find it is actually just the word womanism, and most of the women. If I can I could be wrong. Let me just click on here. Hold on.
Important.
Hold on.
Is Africana womanism a global paradigm for women of African descent? What I'll be doing is defining the paradigm within a global perspective. And I would like to open up.
Oh, she did say African, so yeah, I guess you're right on that one. But it's interesting. So the Black Bear, which has a star on it, this show recognizes historically everyone who has been labeled black. Now, regardless of going through genetics and lineage, this kind of stuff, generally what they refer to Africoid people is what they define black people by being melanated and Africoid features, and a combination of both of these two, the variants. Then the word Negro, Black, Ethiop, Black or more, Negro, ancient Libyan at some point as well. And then you have that in certain places, Negrito, Aboriginal, this kind of names. these denote a certain phenotype that the enemies of black people would call black, Negroid, Africoid, Australoid, these kind of names, right? Black Betterment speeches about a lifestyle wherever you are, you can practice it. So anyone who has historically been labeled black within the framework of this show is the lifestyle and practice that you yourself can do something in the chair you at to actually in your community seek betterment. I think that regardless of what you call yourself, Pan-Africanism and these kind of stuff, they can also work in certain places where they might no longer identify as African because they've been removed by so many centuries but they still retain the Africoid features. But once again, everyone has their opinion and people can push forward of how they want to do. We do actually use just for people to understand, a very good case study to practice when it comes to a concept known as racial whitening is the Aborigines. Very, very good example of the darker skinned Aborigines being completely wiped out, and then along them, unfortunately, succumbing to alcoholism. And then because they're in small numbers and they're all seeking to interbreed with the oppressor of the white community, and then the lighter skin practicing where all the lighter skinned Aborigines are so-called Aborigines as they become completely white, then inherit all the resources. So this is something that we do try to have a world awareness of black people being completely genocide and how best to find solutions. But Brother Kel, did you want to say something?
All with respect to Sister Betty, Africa is older than the word Aboriginal. It's older than all these names. What the European and the Asian and the Middle Eastern decided to label us. In fact, Middle East, that only came out 1948. So when we look at Africa, and we have to go back to the Nile Valley, it returns back to Nile Valley contributions, right? Af, from, Ka, God, spirit. And this is the thing where when it comes to this Pan-Africanist movement, when you're saying you're an African, you are from the original people. The black parents of mankind, they were put in Africa. So they weren't put in Asia and they weren't put in the Middle East or Europe. It was Africa. And this is why we must identify with this label, because it's older than the labels that came out by the European, the Asian, and the Middle Eastern. And this is why we should call ourselves that, because it's the only label where you can't run away from as much as you want to try and get away from, but you can't. And there's richness and political campaigning as well as military and political science involved in it. And we should call ourselves African. And when it comes to the womanism, and we spoke about this last week, Brother Raven, is that when you start using womanism, non-African women can enter that campaign. They did it with the Black Panthers. They did it with all the movements. But when it comes to Pan-Africanism, Garveyism, they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that because it would be like a block. You know what I mean? The moment you can come in, block. But if you don't put the African on that, then everybody can come in. This is why a lot of the movements weren't successful. This is why the only movement which all black movements come from is Garveyism. Garvey is the only successful movement, right? Made it possible. And all other black movements, I'm not disrespecting no other black movement, it spawns from Garveyism.
Right. Okay. I'm just gonna comfort. Look, you are really I don't know. You just sort of hero worship, Garvey. Garvey's movement wasn't successful. His ship never left the Caribbean and never got to Africa. And the guy was charged with wire fraud, and his son is asking for a pardon. When you ask United States government for a pardon, it's an admission of guilt in legal terms if you don't understand what a pardon is. Yeah. Now, the Aborigines, they're not Africans. Yeah. Call them African. They're not Africans. You can't say that people who left 72,000 years ago are Africans. Yeah. And they're not going to be too happy to be that term to be forced on them when they have a whole culture, a whole language, and a whole continent. Yeah. And it's very disrespectful to even think that, you know, you can't respect how they define themselves. Because I know, like you, Kale, who's always trying to tell us that mixed Africans are just African, but then you won't respect other people's right to self-determination for them to call themselves one of the ethnic groups. They call themselves the Kare. Yeah. So forget all this. And this is what I mean by when you talk about respect and you talk about the only successful movement of black people is Garveyism. The thing failed. The guy got convicted of wire fraud. His ship never sailed from the Caribbean to Africa. So stop pushing this thing. If you want to go with the Garveyism, go with it. But not everybody who is black is an African. You can't come and tell me that you left Africa 72,000 years ago and that you're still an African.
Right. So let me. I know Brother Carol probably like to speak.
It's just ignorant. It's real ignorance.
Let me
Because
speak.
you're the same person that is trying to claim that mixed race people are just African.
Well,
All this self-identification. You want me to respect the self-identity. You want to identify mixed race people as just African, but you can't respect the fact that these people in Australia are not Africans.
right.
So you want to have your cake and eat it.
So one thing I would say is this:
Bring me one Aborigine person that is calling themselves an African, and I can bring you 1,000 that are calling themselves an Australian.
Right. So let me jump in before Brother Kerry comes in, and this is where I kind of come in more. So this is my area of interest, really. The thing is, you know, many black people have a history of labels and terms and certain identities and stuff, and because black people historically from certain parts of the world were separated and time went by and certain stuff, it does make it very hard to actually, you know, maneuver. So that's why I'm trying to push forward a very flexible, self-changing word, and that is the word black with a star on it and a capital B. There you go. Now, everywhere we go, we see that word, and that word means black people. So if you want to know who black people are, this is coming from looking at Wikipedia, where you're looking at Afro-textured hair, sub-Saharan African, and black people, which then will also include Aborigines. One of the jobs I will never do is call African, Aboriginal, or this, that. I always let people self-determine. Oh, today there's now the mixed race, multiracial people who have identified with African ancestry. The thing is, this is the anxiety recipe. What I'm saying is there's a collective word black that the enemies of black people have used to wash people together. And this makes sense that when a group is identified to come together, when slavery was being, when the world was fighting against the Haitian Revolution, many of the Europeans did not actually like each other, but they saw a value to come together to try to stop that particular movement. And this is something that many black people over the world haven't necessarily learned the value of, like doing things that's in your collective best interest, because people who are trying to destroy you see you the same. Even though you might not be the same, even though a person from South Africa might be a different person from Nigeria, or a person from African American, a person who's got a mother from here, there, there is a connection. Now, with that connection, there can be movements for betterment in the area you stand. So the truth of the matter is, today you're not going to find that many Aboriginal Australians in the area of Nigeria or America trying to get betterment. You're going to find them pretty much in Australia, and the philosophies we push here is for them to use in their area to better themselves, and we can learn from their downfall, which is unfortunate with the completely genetic annihilation of the Tasmanians and many of the Aborigines. But we can give them a framework that we're going to practice that counter correlate with them, because they too were both identified as black people, black fellas, and maybe even Negroes to some degree. I'm not too sure. Yeah, or melanated people. So this is how this lifestyle operates. But to just pull people African, I would like to, but I understand that many people might to take issue to this. And even the word black becomes very challenging because of the whole multiracial business. Hence why, as Betty is correct, I've put another interchangeable concept on the star, that if ever people view one of these groups as non-black, we just push the word greater black, because some people have anxiety when some people are peer-to-peer to different people. And once again, black people are very good at not getting on. So we have to have solutions to make sure that we can get on. Sorry to say that long speech, but Brother Kel, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to clarify a lot of things. It is true, Pan-Africanism, it was birthed in the United States of America. But one thing we can say, though, is that our beloved Kwame Nkrumah and a member from the Benin tribe studied in Philadelphia under the arts of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. When you look in North Africa, when you look at the Libyan flag, Algeria, and etc., the Libyan flag is based upon what? The red, black, and green. The Black Panthers were able to go in North Africa because everybody recognized that the Black Panther movement was a spawn of Garveyism. Garveyism also went in East Africa. It went in South Africa, where we have William Mandela and Nelson Mandela that approached it. It also went in Asia as well. You have the untouchable Indians who were learning off the arts of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And that's for the Caribbean. And that's for Europe. We know already Althea Jones, an amazing prolific ancestor, is from the Caribbean. Although she was a Black Panther, but she still understood that the arts came from Garveyism. So I don't really need to, argue with any African descendant female, is that the African womanism is the way forward. And, there's nothing really we could say about it, man. The proof, the Honorable Marcus Garvey's blueprint, man, it's being used every single day. There are those who use it and they try and get rid of his name, which is very dishonest. But at the same time, man, he's the only African descendant in the 20th century that kept up nationalism. All the other groups either believe in socialism or using a religion or using some form of ideology. But the Honorable Marcus Garvey brought back nationalism. And that's what we have to give respect to. The African womanism needs to be based upon nationalism, not socialism.
Now, guys, we are entering the last, say, 50 minutes of the show. If anyone would like, let me get that link again. Hold on. We had a great show, great guest by Brother Cal and Sister Betty. Let me just put that in. If anyone would like to jump in and give their opinions on feminism or womanism or just any isms in general, by all means, jump in. We will give you your space and time to speak. This is an ongoing show, so this is part 2. We probably going to have a part 3. But, this is all part of trying to, fix many of the challenges that might be in the Black community. And one of them is, we definitely promote Black love, which is constructive Black man, constructive Black woman. And we definitely want to invite people who don't believe in that, and people who might be not best pleased with Black men and might have gone their own way, and vice versa. We had a guest last week who sounded that way inclined, potentially, I'm not too sure. But we definitely want to talk about that. But in order to make sure we can facilitate that, we want to definitely hear women issues and men issues, and then we come together on that. Great points raised by both Brother Cal and Betty. Very, very important contributors. They come with very strong opinions, very strong past, very learned past, and it's an asset to the show to have people speak with such clarity and conviction. And we look forward to hearing them again. And then let's go back to the actual title of the show, just so we can end on that.
Can we talk about this? Is like I want to reply to this because you couldn't reply, and I don't think you would be able to reply anyway. But this business of worshiping dead men, the great dead men, yeah, and that you can't even move on from that, yeah. You can't critique the man because you worship him like it's a religion, yeah. But the fact of the matter is, you cannot bring any Aborigine calling themselves an African all you can bring is Aborigines who call themselves by whatever native tribe, whether it's the Kray, etc., etc.
Right.
But if you're going to have a black movement, you have to respect what people define themselves as. You can't just force this African thing on them and say that your ancestors left Africa 72,000 years ago. You want a joke thing,
right? So
and you diminish what it is to be an African right here, right now.
Right. Very good points.
Those people are not. There are many people. If you look at the work of Professor Lam of Tamil in India, who talks about his ancestors leaving Sudan 6,000 years ago. But he does not call himself an African, but he says his ancestors came from Africa.
Right. Well,
but they're still black. So you can still have a common bond with people, but you don't have to force this African term on them just because you worship Garvey.
Right. So let me try to. You're right.
It's like every single time I come on, KO bangs on about Garvey.
Well, hold on.
There was no liberation movement before Garvey came, which is nonsense.
On this debate, we have to respect. We try to respect each other. We have to understand that Brother Kel's stability in life comes from researching and practicing the tendencies of Garveyism and Pan-Africanism, and that works well for him, and it has worked for many other people. And it is a principle that if people practice, they will find solutions. And
when I came on months ago, when he was trying to tell me who the ethic were, did he respect who I define myself as and my people's history? No, we didn't, Raven. So if Kale wants to talk about respect, Kale needs to give respect. And when he said, the African female, the African descendant female, I found that disrespectful, isn't it? So if man wants respect, man have to give respect, isn't it?
So let's try to deal with these points each. So what you're saying is you're not best pleased when Brother Kel labels people African. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, when they're 72,000 years away from Africa and they don't label themselves as African. Because he can't bring me an Aborigine now on video saying I'm an African and not an Australian, can he?
Yeah, but I mean, look, you're however you want to think and process is how you want to think and process. There are some people, they use a term,
and then when he tries to define me, Raven,
okay,
and then he tries to force his opinion down my throat. Every time I come on, he bangs on about, I don't know why people are saying mixed race people aren't Africans, and he comes on all the time and goes, they're African only. So he wants to be able to self-define people. Yeah, but when we self-define ourselves, he don't like it.
I can't speak for Brother Kel, but I can speak for just to try to get balance and stuff. There are many people who come on, they have political ways of addressing things because
Raven, let him speak for himself.
I understand, but
he's the one that's offended me,
and because I'm just trying to get in the middle so we can get a fruitful conversation going. So hopefully, before he talks, I can set that premise. But what I'm saying is, some people with the political agenda, there's a bigger picture they put at hand. So they understand that there's a goal they want to go to, and they use certain terms to get there. And in the unity they're trying to preach, that's the basis for it. So they understand that many people have been separated from Africa for many times through whatever it might be, but through connected through that land and what it was with land, a form of glory can be achieved. And Marcus Garvey, who was born in Jamaica, recognized this. As in, he recognized that he might be born in Jamaica, but his lineage was in Africa. And he understands that through that base, he's going to try to collate thousands of millions of people to try to recreate the greatness that was once in Africa and can be of the descendants of Africans, And then obviously there's outpourings of people who left Africa many times, but they still retain that the connection to Africa. So, for example, just like there are Europeans who left Africa thousands of years ago and Aborigines left thousands of years ago. However, when they interact with the enemies of Black people, the Europeans at the time, because they see a similar phenotype on the Aborigines and the Negritos, they then treat them, because they understand that they came from Africa many years ago, but because they stayed in a land that maintained the Africanity of their phenotype, they will be treated the same. And some people understand that treatment, so they connect them with the phenotype that was once prevalent in Africa before leaving. These are philosophies that people push, and this is fine for them. And I understand you have your own thing. I say let's try to talk in a way where we can diminish confusion and anxiety, but I can never speak for Brother Cal. Brother Cal, I've just tried to be that mediator between you and Sister Bay. But if you want to jump in now, you can.
Okay, Sister Bay, if you found me labeling the ethics disrespectful, then that was not my intention. I was looking at it more as a collective, due to the fact that although Pan-Africanism was birthed in America, it was more of a thing that uniting all ethics together, being how we all came from the same continent, and to campaign our own agenda. So if you felt like I was disrespecting you, then I apologize. It was not my intention. It was more of a collective mindset due to the way how I've been raised and the way how I view African people. But it was not meant for a disrespect to you. So I apologize for that. Do
you understand my point, Kale?
Yeah,
that you cannot run around pulling people from Australia. Where's your proof in it? You claim that these people are Africans. Bring the person from that continent that says that they're an African.
Well, Sister Bet, we have proof.
Because I'm not going to roll with what you say just because you say it, Kale.
No, but you don't have to roll with what I said. We roll with the facts and the evidence. And
no. The word facts means you have to. If something's a fact, you back it up with evidence. Go and bring me next week, since you claim the Aborigines say that they're Africans. Go and bring them in it. We'll unpick the thing.
Now, Sister Betty, Brother Raven's already made it clear that due to certain labels has been pushed onto us, because you notice the same trend keeps on happening. We have a hatred of calling ourselves African, but we call ourselves Black, Aboriginal, all these names, whereas Africa is older than all those names that the non-Africans gave us. So what a Pan-Africanist does, returns back to what we were in the beginning and focus on that, because Aborigine is not older than Africa. You understand?
Nobody says it was.
I know,
but what you stated, that the Aborigines are Africans.
They are.
Yeah?
They are Africans.
Go and bring and I'm telling you, back up your statement. Go and bring the Aborigine that says that they're an African.
Oh, I'm not going to bring that.
And we'll see you next week.
The ancient proofs is that they are.
You can't do it. This is the problem.
Okay, sister.
This is the issue that I have with you. You make statements, but you can't back up the thing. When you made your statement, when you were banging on about the ethic being from Sudan, but you couldn't back it up.
Okay, sister.
And then you did the same thing with the mixed race people. You said that they're just African. You still can't back that thing up.
I'm basing it based.
You make a lot of statements that you can't back up, and it's your opinion. Then you say it's fact.
Well,
I'm basing it on the principles of Pan-Africanism.
He did make it clear, Sister Bay, that he
made it clear.
Yeah.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, sorry, bro. Let's just jump. He has made it clear that there's some philosophies that push forward, so that make operating much more easier. The thing is, with miscegenation.
You go, Raven.
So hold on, Sister Bear. The thing, this from my understanding, the thing with miscegenation and these kinds of things, and diaspora movement and enslavement, it really does separate people groups. And I guess there is a call for need. There's a thing called Pan-Asianism, which the Asians practiced before they became their own separate power. Because I understood there was a value when Europe was becoming more powerful to come together to actually make sure they can actually push forward a strategy to make sure their people group prosper. Pan-Africanism, Garveyism is a similar kind of concept, right? And it also looks at the treatment of people who were labeled Black all over the world and why they were. Through this process, people are using the term African because they understand that by identifying by a landmass, it's more powerful than this by identifying by a color or by a religion or by something else, right? And so this is how these pan movements start and these isms start.
Okay,
But
then,
more importantly, if you're offended, we're going to try to create a platform where we minimize offense. But you have to recognize that people have been raised in these ideologies and they've found structures about it. Now, what we don't want to do is undermine your cultural background and your worth. But at the same point, you are going to disagree. So you might not. I'm not too sure what you're saying with the whole biracial thing, but we can identify that a biracial person with a Nigerian dad and a some other mother still has lineage to the land of Africa. You see,
yeah, but they're not just African, though.
And now, what we have to review historically, and this is something where I guess Black people have always played the kind card. Historically, when Africans have mated with non-Africans, the non-African has always been most bitter and most egregious and terrorizing towards the offspring of that union. Because of the kindness and the history of the African says you always have a home here. We see this practice today. So it's through that history that many people say you are African, because you don't see the Japanese claim. There's this new tennis woman, I forgot her name because I'm ignorant to the sport, but there's a woman, she's half Haitian, half Japanese, and you see the same thing.
Naomi Osaka.
There you go. There you go. We see this kind of history where there seems to be a more natural kindness within the African community than non-African, and we see this when you look at storybooks all over the world, or when Nigerians go to China, and some people say that China created the COVID virus. Some say I shouldn't say the word. They created the word that rhymes with that word, whatever, right? And then yet it is Nigerians who are being beaten and accused, saying that they are spreading this particular thing. So we see this natural hate for Africoid Black people, and so some people say, you know what? No matter what happens, if you have an lineage in Africa, you have a safe home here because we understand the world treats you bad. This is the beginning philosophy. It isn't necessary to undermine people who are born on the land or people of a certain kind of persuasion, but because today there's so much disharmony, so much hatred, so much self-loathing, that we find what people are defining as tribalism, we'll use that word for now, and what we're saying is Pan-Africans recognize that this concept never works good, so we try to find a universal word to unite everyone, and the word they use is African. Now, this outcome here today, through my studies, I knew it would happen. Hence why I pushed forward the word Black with a star, which actually is interchangeable with the word African, Greater African, or Black, Greater Black, because one thing that I don't think we should be doing as a collective group is fighting over labels. We made that very clear when we said not to call yourself womanism. And I feel that we're very good through training to do that. So however people want to be labeled, I shall label them, as long as those people to which they are called work together for betterment.
Yeah, but that's just self. Look, the fact of the matter is, yeah, you said historically these mixed race children, they be labeled African because African people are really welcoming, etc. And they don't mind if you got a bit of milk in your coffee, you still part of us. But I can go to Africa, and we could go to North Africa and see the same situation, and then people are labeling themselves Arab and not African. So it may work. Your story may work in the Americas and the Caribbean, but it's not the same thing on the ground in Africa.
Oh, I hear that.
Then mixed race people are separating themselves from Africa.
I would say.
And then another thing, Raven, with this, when you as a mixed race person claim you're just African, that is self-identity. That is not the genetic story, is it? Because you're choosing to ignore the 50% of something else. Now, just because you choose to do that and self-identify as an African, that doesn't mean you're going to put a gun to my head and tell me I have to ignore the 50% that isn't African.
Why would it?
That's what you're saying. You intend to hold me hostage because I don't agree with your self-identification.
Why is it that in the Haitian Revolution, when Napoleon Bonaparte was speaking to his men, and he specifically made this clear, those who have read the Haitian Revolution, he says that treat the biracial Africans better than the non-biracial Africans. But know
Because
in
they're
your
part of them.
that the
Because they're
biracial
half white, isn't it?
and the
Of course,
non-biracial,
they're going to treat you better, isn't it?
they
Because
are
you're
one.
part of them as well
This is
as the
what
Africans.
one of us says. You know what I mean? This is what he says. This is about documentation. He says treat the biracial African more better than the non-biracial Africans, but know in your heart that they're both the same. This is what
They're not the same, though, are they, Kale?
he said though. Even in
They're not the same, Kale.
but
It is
sister
a self-identification
Isaac
that
sister,
I,
right,
as an African,
right,
with no cream, in my coffee, I don't
okay.
have to agree with it.
No, you
I
don't.
go on the genetics and the scientific facts. So
But even the
I don't
scientific
care
facts
how
don't
many
go
mixed
down that
race
path,
people identify as just African. I don't have to accept it, innit?
Well,
but
hold
even
on a second,
scientific, it went down that way as well. What did
let me try to get balanced before we end the show, Brother Kel. So no one here should force you to have to label them. So, for example, if someone is an Afro-Caribbean, they're aware they're Afro-Caribbean. If someone is a multiracial, whatever the word is nowadays, they will understand that these words can tick, and you can think of them as saying these things. No one is really going to really bat at it. I think what sometimes Brother Kel might be doing, and what I've do is they're trying to find a universal word that collates everyone together for ease of language. And so far, that is a universal word. Some people push forward black, but some people say, it's best if you connect to a landmass. So it's more, people of identifiable. That's what I push. People of identifiable African ancestry is what I push to minimize anxiety in people who are going through that kind of identity disagreements.
but Raven,
Go ahead,
sorry
bro.
to call, right? If you look at the lighter Asians, right, and lighter Middle Easterns, right, the European, they will call, and this is one of the greatest political signs of them, they will call an African descendant, right, a mixed race, and they're even lighter and have no form of African blood than the mixed race that they're calling. Don't you find that very peculiar? Why are you calling African descendants who are, as what they use the word mixed race, when they are more genetically dominant than you? There's a movement out there. So it's not necessarily, Brother Raven, a unification of a landmass, but it's the facts. Do you understand what I'm saying? And that the facts needs to be brought in, and they're not. There's no such thing as mixed race. If you look at them, is their forehead yellow? Is their cheeks red? Is there, this show me this new creation and stuff like that. If someone can show me this new creation, I can say, it's a mixed race. But if their complexion resembles ancient ways and their features, then that's not a mixed race. That's an ancient African.
All these philosophies are important, and I say this: when it comes to Black Betterment, just to make things flow easier, the word black, which is a capital B, LACK, then the star, is a collective word that includes the historical people who have been called black from all over Africa and all over Asia and Australasia and Americas and so forth, who are they called black. I can't make people call other people African or black, whatever it is. It does take too long. But the people who see a value in connecting with other people with the same experience and similar phenotypes and similar background, they will come together in their areas and form philosophies that work best within the best interest of those people. In England we call it E1, EC3, I think. Yeah, IC3. I'm sorry, it's late at night. I need to go to bed. But so one thing is, but if someone is offended, we do want to try to create a scenario where we can minimize offense, but we have to understand that we are coming to show where people are going to have historical opinions, and it just might be we might have to disagree. I can never look at a biracial Nigerian and if you even want to use the term Nigerian, you might want to say Igbo or whatever. I don't know, right? I don't know what people want to say, right? But what it's like if a person has identifiable people, black ancestry, then they are welcome to practice black betterment. This has always been the historical concept, right? Like, but saying that, I recommend that black people marry black people. Constructive black man with constructive black woman. But as we know, and more so when in the transatlantic slave trade and the Arab slave trade, people were raped, and unfortunately, and we allow the byproduct of those people to come back to a more constructive a collective group and practice racial blackening, because the opposite was racial whitening, and racial whitening doesn't necessarily work for black people. It's just what it is. But everyone's opinion is valid. Let's just try to have it and try to use it to empower black people rather than cause division and anxiety, because we don't really get anywhere when we do that generally.
You know what, Raven? This is one of my real issues with, and I think it's really disrespectful. And I'm really sick of hearing this mixed race people are black and just black. Since you like to talk about the plantation and slavery,
right?
Let's talk about the plantation.
Okay.
The mixed race children of the slave master were put in the house eating better than the people that were black and blacker like me. And they were the ones that would be going around telling the black people in the field what to do. Now, emancipation has come. I had a mixed race teacher who was half white and half Nigerian. And this man spent a considerable amount of time telling me and other people how to be black, even though he was half white. And the black woman he married, he disrespected, because he was shagging her as well as shagging his mixed race girlfriend. He thought he could tell black women how to do their hair, who they should be procreating with. And it was never the white man, even though he was half white. And the irony of it, that a mixed race person feels like they can tell a black person how to be black when they're actually half white and the black person is just black. And this is just a rerun of the plantation, where mixed race people were able to oppress black people in the field because they were half white and they were treated better. And now emancipation's come, we've got mixed race people running around thinking they can tell black people how to be black.
So good point. Barry always comes with good points. So let me answer.
Right.
Let me answer, Brother Kevin, before you jump in. There'll be plenty of time. One thing we have to remember, and this is what we are taught by our ancestors, is we recognize that, there's a domino effect of pain, right? And we have to recognize that when you talk about enslavement, there is someone who is at the foot of that. So the person who is responsible for that dynamic is the same person who went to the Native Americans and found a way to create divide techniques to make them fight amongst themselves, to have them as the saviors, and the two Indians war each other, and then after the war was over, the spoils are taken by the Europeans. This same practice happens. Divide and conquer was more powerful than the nuclear bomb at the time, and it was used in every single facet of war, and slavery is a facet of war. And what you're seeing there is that same thing, divide and conquer. Now, people who recognize that don't let it define them, but what they do try to do is create scenarios where we can have a balancing act, where the history of that ill balance can be pushed forward so everyone can prosper, but we have to have a compensatory kind of method of doing things. So that's how I personally look at it. But you're right, this has gone on, but we would put
but Raven also, when you go to the point of these mixed race people owning slaves in America, the so-called mixed race people that you call black were also slave masters in America. So for the people that were just black.
I don't call anyone, I wouldn't call a mixed race person black. I would let them define themselves, and they're welcome to practice black women because they have a black parent, and historically all black movements have allowed this. So I'm continue on when refining a collective lifestyle. It's up to them to define. But what I would say is, just like you will get biracial enslavers after the fact, you will also get what you are calling black enslavers or full black enslavers. This is on the continent and outside of the continent, all over the continent. So we can easily.
But you get mixed race enslavers in the continent as well.
Yes. What's your point? My point is, no matter how hard we look, we're always going to find that unique thing we're trying to find. and we understand that both the biracial and the non-biracial person have identifiable African ancestry. So they're welcome to practice in collective groups that is trying to benefit the collective as a whole. That's
Yeah,
just
but what they don't get to do is tell black people how to be black. When you're half white, you don't get to disown your white ancestry because it came through rape.
Well, that's your opinion.
You're
isn't
still
it?
half white. It
That's
doesn't get white just because of the tragic situation that it came through. And anybody today, you're not half white because you got enslaved and your ancestors got enslaved. It's through choice. When my mixed race teacher was disrespecting and insulting black women, he's not insulting black women, and he's not half white because his black relative was raped. His father was a Nigerian man that went freely to be with a white woman. So it's nothing to do with the rape of black people. It's to do with the union that came together. And that guy thought he could subjugate and disrespect black people.
I don't know how you got that from. One thing
I do agree with Brother Raven is that the African woman who does not have a European or Asian or Middle Eastern ancestry, is that one of the things I commend of her, which my mother and the rest of the females told me, is that the darker hue African woman, whenever they would see their children who came out of rape, unfortunately, those who can pass as white, they would never ever inform the Europeans that that's really an African descendant. And I do believe we do have to give homage to the darker hue of the African woman, because they did practice that African womanism. You know what I mean? Another thing as well is that, you know, we could be talking about, you know, the mixed race thing, but brother, at the end of the day, right, you know, on the plantation, we have Nat Turner, who was biracial, and look what he did. You know, the Honorable Frederick Douglass, he was also biracial, and look what he did. So, can we say a mixed race can tell a black person? Brother Raven, I've made myself clear. I don't believe an African descendant, whether they are biracial, by that stereotypical or non-biracial, telling black people how to organize when they're not pan-Africanized. Because it's not the blood that's inside of you, it's the mindset. That's what
that's what I think.
And this is the problem. This is the issue. When you actually, if you're saying that it's not the blood that matters, then a white person can roll in and play at being black, like Rachel Dolezal did. Because you just said, Kale, it's not the blood that matters, it's the mindset. Well, Rachel Dolezal's got the mindset. She should be a black woman, isn't it?
So what is it that you're trying to say, Sister Bay? Is it just
what I'm saying is it's the blood and the mindset that matter. Both of them matter.
Yeah, well, I agree that the blood is the blood lineage of the people group, and the mindset is working with those people group for betterment.
Yeah, and what I'm also saying is I'm not going to have no mixed race person tell me how to be black.
I don't know if there's any. I haven't really seen any person actually try to do that.
Well, I have.
All right,
because you're not with me 24/7, Raven.
Obviously,
and I continue to see it, especially in the so-called Pan-African pro-black community. What I'm saying, Kale, is both of you may think that mixed race people are just African, but just know that in the community that you exist, there's people like me that don't just see them as just African, that we actually go by the genetics. Yeah, and we see them both as, whether you're Naomi Osaka and you've got a Japanese mother and a Haitian father, we see them as both. And then them people can't walk in and start telling me how to be black and how to be an African. It don't run like this. This ain't the plantation where massive offspring can start oppressing the people that are just black. Don't work like that. More than happy to work with you, but don't ever step out of place. Don't ever feel like you can come and tell me how to be black and how to be an African.
Well, what we're going to do now is we have to recognize there's trauma and there's ideas and the history of trauma. Whenever someone speaks that, we're always going to listen. And whatever because it has to be a collection of people doing things, and we have to identify people's shortcomings and long goings. So if you as an individual, someone else had an issue with something, we would definitely try to facilitate a space, but we'll minimize any kind of anxiety, and we'll let the people directly know the history of where this is and why it is, and hopefully we can work together as a team, because ultimately we're trying to find solutions rather than things that divide. And we have to recognize that when you talk about Black people, one of our strengths and weaknesses is it's such a big collective group. It's a massive collective group that actually should be a supreme strength, but at the same point, it's actually a very divisive thing, because there's so many boxes you need to tick to appease everyone, and you ultimately can't. So we try to have, I guess, very free-flowing concepts that work. But if we're saying that, if there is what you're called, say, let's just say a Nigerian Igbo woman who isn't best pleased with a Nigerian who's also Igbo, who's Igbo and Japanese, and they're not best pleased with saying, well, you're using the term Black, I'm not best pleased, then we can facilitate a conversation to try to make that, if it really is an issue. But we have to see the legacy of that amongst many different people to make sure it's not an isolated issue. But either way, as an individual, we'll still take it serious, because we want everyone to have their best face when it comes to working together for them. So that's the only thing I can say, because every unique person has their unique challenge that they find. And if it becomes a collective issue, then we have to address it. But we still will address it from a singular standpoint, just because we have that kind of mindset.
As I said, brother, man, I mean, there's, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, Charlotte Bass, they were the representatives of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlotte Bass practiced African womanism. The Honorable Marcus Garvey, they both formulated and propaganda the Black Doll Factory, because at that time, our African little princesses were being, attacked for their original Nubian beautiful complexion, as well as the antenna of the hair. So the Honorable Marcus Garvey and Charlotte Bass came up with the Black Doll Factory, the newspaper, to let us know what's going on around the world. Nowadays, Brother Raven, you don't get that, unfortunately. You just get attacking each other. And the Black Star Line was a representation that economics collectively by Black people can be put in a pot and dispute amongst our people. And these symbolism and tangible solution, bro, I believe that this is what you practice with your amazing blueprint called the Black Betterment, that where there is a problem, there must be a solution. And Black Betterment is a solution, and it is part of the Pan-Africanist branch, and we must use that to help the African womanism grow, because definitely I am pro that, and definitely will promote that too.
Thank you, Brother Kel. I was like to say thank you to Sister Bet and Brother Kel, who come with very strong, opinionated, historical studied ideas, and they create interesting topics. And hopefully, in the future time, others can jump in and we can get more opinions. We just say goodbye to Sister Betty, who's done fantastic, and Brother Kel. But unfortunately, we've gone over slightly. Always good to watch this show live, because usually the algorithm get it and we get shut down. It gets taken down for a few minutes, and I have to snip bits off that you never see again, unfortunately. So I always watch it live, but it is going live now. Until next week. Next week might be the trilogy of the womanism, or maybe Black women issues. Then after that, maybe we might move into Black love. Don't know yet. But everyone has their opinions. Maybe you agree with Sister Bay, maybe you agree with Sister Brother Cal. Maybe there's a middle line. Maybe we need to discuss the concept of biracialism, so called. I know Brother Amos Wilson, he mentioned that as soon as you change the title, you're going to get divisions, and he was correct. But maybe it's right, maybe it's not right. Who knows? We have to actually have these conversations. But I would say we definitely want to be solution-based. But until then, Black Betterment, remember, let's go on the last thing to make everyone know. Blah, 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 blah. Where is it? Black people helping Black people on Black issues. Notice the star. You see there? Because that helps, because people have their own definitions, and it stops the show. So we have a universal expanding concept that can shrink and grow depending on what we need to know. Oh, yeah, that's right. Check you guys next week. Big up everyone. Hopefully next week more people will jump in. Any kind of topic you guys want to have, by all means. Saying that though, I did say I was going to do this last week, and let me do it now. I know it probably won't happen. If anyone wants to jump in live for 4 seconds to talk about a topic we should cover, click on the say now, or throw in the link now before it closes. Just quickly, if anyone wants to jump in and say, please cover this topic, we do more of this, do less of that, let me know now if I put it in the link. But if not, we're going to continue with womanism, the trilogy of womanism, and then we might go into maybe Black love, or maybe not. Maybe we might need to tackle Black women who don't like Black men, who feel Black men are inadequate, who feel Black men have dropped the ball. Very important we talk about that. We definitely. I've invited many Black women who don't trust Black men, but unfortunately, being a Black man myself, they don't trust me, so they don't want to jump on the show. But I'm sure we'll find some, and we'll see what we can do. But definitely want to create a constructive, I don't like the word safe space, so all Black people can have their opinion. And normally, sometimes we get people with very strong opinions who are very, directly their way, and it's good because it trains us how to best facilitate those with the most extreme views. But until next week, we have a good time. No one's jumping in, so what are you going to do? We're going to end the show. Here we go. Goodbye. I said so. End.